I watched my stepdaughter's face go pale as she read the card, her hand trembling so hard she nearly dropped it. Around us, 20 of her closest friends had gone completely silent. The summer sun hung low over the backyard, casting long shadows across the lawn, and I stood there in that moment feeling like maybe, just maybe, I'd finally gotten something right. But that's the ending. Let me tell you how we actually got here. Because 2 hours earlier, I was standing in that same backyard feeling like the biggest fool alive. My name's Michael, by the way, 52 years old, divorced once, and apparently destined to learn life's hardest lessons the slow way. I've been married to Karen for almost 6 years now, and when I say I love that woman, I mean it with everything I've got. She's the real deal, smart, kind, still laughs at my stupid jokes even though she's heard them 100 times. Her daughter Ashley is 22, finishing up her degree at State, and for most of those 6 years, I thought we had a pretty solid relationship. Not best friends forever stuff, but solid. I'd help her move apartments, we'd talk about her classes and her dating drama, the usual step-parent, step-kid dynamic that actually works. The house we live in is a 4-bedroom colonial in Westfield, New Jersey, about 40 minutes from the city. We paid $650,000 for it 5 years ago, and the mortgage still keeps me up at night sometimes. But it's ours. Karen's an accountant. I'm in pharmaceutical sales. Good income, stable, nothing glamorous. We've got the HOA fees to prove we're solid citizens, the 401k, the whole package. Life was the kind of ordinary that feels like a win when you're my age and you've already failed once at marriage. 3 weeks before Ashley's party, Karen came home excited about it. She wants to throw a big bash, Karen told me over dinner. Turning 23, celebrating making Dean's List again. I told her we'd contribute to the budget, and honey, she's invited basically everyone from school plus her whole friend group. It's going to be amazing. I remember nodding, thinking it sounded nice. Maybe a little exhausting, but nice. Karen was already planning the food, asking if I could handle setting up the backyard. Of course, I said. Whatever she needs. That should have been my first clue that something was off. I should have asked more questions, but I was busy with a new account at work, and honestly, I wasn't paying close attention. I just knew that Ashley and I weren't exactly close anymore, not like we used to be. There'd been some distance creeping in over the past year or so. Nothing dramatic, just the kind of thing that happens when a kid gets older and has their own life. I figured a party was a good chance to reconnect, to show up for her, to be the kind of stepfather who actually gives a damn. The Saturday of the party came, and I woke up that morning feeling weirdly nervous. I spent the afternoon setting up the backyard, rented a nice tent because weather can be unpredictable in July, strung up some lights, made sure the speakers were working. Karen was inside preparing food. It was hot, I was sweating through my shirt, but there was something good about the work, something about knowing that the effort mattered. Ashley texted Karen around 3 o'clock, saying she was heading to a salon to get her hair and nails done, that she'd be back by 6. Perfect timing for a 7 o'clock start. By 6:30, the backyard looked good. Really good, actually. The lights cast this warm glow across the lawn, the tables were set with nice linens, and the catering company had arrived with the appetizers. Karen came outside to inspect everything, and she wrapped her arm around my waist. "This looks wonderful," she said. "Ashley's going to love it." I felt proud. I felt like I'd done something right. Then people started arriving. I was in the house grabbing ice when I heard the noise. The sound of genuine excitement, the way young people laugh and shout when they're happy. I came back outside and the backyard was filling up. Dozens of people, mostly Ashley's age or close to it. I recognized some of them from family dinners. Others were strangers. I spotted Ashley across the lawn, hugging friends, radiant in this white summer dress. She looked beautiful and happy, and I felt this warm swell of something. Pride, maybe? Or just the satisfaction of having helped make this happen. I was standing by the drink station when one of her friends, a girl with pink highlights in her hair, grabbed a vodka soda and said something to her friend that made them both laugh. I didn't catch it, but I caught the direction of their eyes. They were looking at me. Just for a second, but long enough that I noticed. I didn't think much of it then. There's always some awkwardness when you're the older step-parent at your stepdaughter's party. You're not supposed to be the cool one. You're just supposed to stay out of the way and be useful. Around 7:30, things shifted. Ashley gathered everyone in the backyard and made a speech. She thanked her mom, thanked her friends, talked about how grateful she was for everything. When she got to me, she paused. Just a beat too long. "And thanks to Michael for setting up the backyard," she said, smiling. But something in that smile didn't reach her eyes. "That was really nice of him." Karen squeezed my arm. I felt like the moment had passed. But looking back now, I realized that's where I should have picked up on it. That polite gratitude, that forced warmth. It was the tone you use for someone you're about to hurt. The party was in full swing by 8 o'clock, and I was trying to stay out of the way like I always do. I grabbed a beer from the cooler and positioned myself near the edge of the action, close enough to be useful if something went wrong, far enough away that I wasn't hovering like some creepy stepdad. Karen was inside refilling the appetizer platters. The music was loud, the kind of bass-heavy stuff that makes you feel old just standing near it. That's when I noticed the phone. Ashley's friend group had huddled near the corner of the tent, and they were watching something on someone's phone, laughing in that specific way that made my stomach tighten. The kind of laugh that has an edge to it. I told myself it was nothing, but I'd lived long enough to know that nothing is rarely actually nothing. Around 9 o'clock, things shifted. Someone, I think it was the girl with the pink highlights, called everyone to gather around. "Speech time," she shouted, and people started clustering in the middle of the backyard. I assumed it was another toast, maybe some funny roast about Ashley. That's normal at parties. What I wasn't expecting was for the girl to pull out her phone and say, "Okay, everybody, we've got something special. This is for you, Ash." She hit play. On the screen of a phone connected to the tent's speaker system, I didn't even know that was possible, but apparently it was, a video started playing. It was a compilation, the kind where you mash together clips set to music. For the first few seconds, it was normal stuff. Ashley laughing with friends, clips from spring break, a moment from what looked like her 18th birthday party. Then the tone changed. The music shifted to something slower, something with a sad violin underneath. The clips started showing what looked like a family dinner. I recognized our dining room immediately. That pale blue wall Karen had painted last summer, the table we'd bought for Thanksgiving 2 years ago. And in the video, I was there. I was sitting at the table with Karen and Ashley, smiling, raising a glass in a toast. The video had been edited to make me look like I was ogling Ashley. The angles were all wrong, the timing was manipulated, but watching it with a crowd of 22-year-olds staring at me, it didn't matter that it was fake. What mattered was the implications screaming off that screen. My beer slipped from my hand and hit the grass. I didn't even notice. The video kept going. More clips, more manipulation. A moment where I'm helping Ashley move into an apartment, twisted to look predatory. A family photo where my arm is around her shoulder, made to look like something it absolutely was not. The whole thing was maybe 90 seconds long, but it felt like hours. When it ended, there was this horrible beat of silence. Then someone started laughing. Then more people. Not mean laughter exactly. That would have been easier. This was the laughter of people who were shocked, but also kind of amused that something this scandalous was happening at a party. The kind of laughter that comes right before things get really bad. I looked at Ashley. She was staring at the ground, arms wrapped around herself. Karen burst through the tent flap from inside the house, had clearly heard the audio shift. She took in the scene in seconds, my face, the phone still in the girl's hand, the crowd's reaction. I watched her eyes go from confusion to understanding to rage. What the hell is this? Karen's voice cut through the noise like a knife. The girl with the phone, I learned later her name was Brittany, tried to smile. It's just a joke, she said. It's funny. Everyone was in on it. It's a prank on Michael. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. Karen walked straight to Brittany and snatched the phone. She watched the video again, just those 90 seconds, and when she looked back up, her face had gone completely white. "Ashley, did you make this?" she asked quietly. And that's when my stepdaughter, my wife's daughter, the girl I'd driven to the hospital at 2 in the morning when she had appendicitis, the girl I'd stayed up with through college application season, the girl I'd helped pay for tuition. She nodded. "It's a joke," Ashley said weakly. "It's not serious. It was just supposed to be funny." "Funny," Karen repeated. She looked at me, and I could see something breaking behind her eyes. Not at me, but at the situation, at her daughter, at the fact that in front of 30 people, our family had just imploded. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The backyard, which had felt so warm and welcoming just an hour earlier, now felt like a stage where I was the featured entertainment of the cruelest show. People were still looking at me, and I couldn't read their faces. Did they think the video was real? Did they think I'd done something? Did it matter? "Everyone out," Karen said to the crowd, her voice steady but shaking. "Party's over. Go home." There was some awkward shuffling. People didn't want to leave. This was drama, real drama, the kind that becomes legend at State University. But Karen's tone was the kind that didn't allow for argument. Slowly, in small groups, people filed toward the gate. I stood there in my own backyard, surrounded by the decorations I'd spent the afternoon hanging, the lights I'd strung up with such hope, and I felt utterly, completely alone. Ashley wouldn't look at me. Karen was staring at her daughter like she didn't recognize her. And I was the monster in the middle, guilty of nothing except maybe being stupid enough to think that love and effort could actually matter in a blended family. It took me a moment to realize my hands were shaking. "I'm going inside," Karen said finally. She looked at Ashley, then at me. "We're not talking about this tonight. I can't. I literally cannot." She walked into the house and closed the sliding glass door hard enough that the frame rattled. Ashley finally looked at me. "Dad, Don't," I said. My voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. "Just don't." I spent the next hour in the garage, cleaning up catering equipment that didn't need cleaning, folding chairs that could have waited until morning, doing anything that would keep me moving and thinking and existing in a world that made slightly more sense than the backyard had 5 minutes earlier. Around midnight, Karen came out. She didn't say much, just that we should probably talk to a lawyer about this, about whether what Ashley had done could constitute defamation or harassment, or something that might actually have legal teeth. A lawyer. About our stepdaughter. About my own family. That's when I understood that things had moved past humiliation into something much darker. This wasn't just a bad night at a party. This was war. And I was completely unprepared for what came next. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. Karen and I barely spoke. We moved around the house like ghosts, passing each other in hallways, eating dinner at different times, sleeping in the same bed, but miles apart. She'd made an appointment with a divorce attorney, not because she wanted out necessarily, but because she needed to understand what legal options we had if Ashley's video had caused actual damage to my reputation or career. I kept waiting for my phone to blow up with calls from work, from friends, from people who'd heard what happened, but nothing came. The video had only circulated among Ashley's friend group, it seemed. A small mercy in what felt like total annihilation. Still, I felt like I was walking around with a scarlet letter that only I could see. Karen finally confronted Ashley about 2 weeks after the party. I wasn't there. I'd deliberately gone to the office on a Saturday to give them space. When I came home, Ashley was in her room and Karen was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea in front of her. "She says it was supposed to be a joke," Karen said flatly, "that Brittany and some other friends put her up to it. That they thought it would be funny because you're always so serious and they wanted to see you get all flustered." Karen's voice had a hollow quality to it, like she was reading from a script. "She says you've always been kind of distant with her friends, that they think you look at them funny sometimes." I felt something crack inside my chest. "That's insane," I said. "I barely look at her friends at all." "I know," Karen said. She looked at me and her eyes were red-rimmed and exhausted. "I know that, Michael. But knowing something and being able to prove it are two different things. And she's my daughter. And I have to—" She trailed off, unable to finish. She had to love her daughter anyway, even now, even after this. That's when I made a decision that changed everything. I contacted a private investigator. I know how that sounds. Paranoid, obsessive, like I was being the thing everyone had accused me of being. But I needed something concrete. I needed to know exactly what happened, who was involved, whether there was actual malice or just stupid kids being cruel. The investigator's name was Robert Chen. He was recommended by the divorce attorney, and he worked quickly. Within a week, he had messages, screenshots from a group chat between Ashley, Brittany, and 4 other friends. The conversation was damning. Brittany: "Okay, but we should actually do it. It would be so funny to see Michael's face." Another girl named Jessica: "OMG, yes, we can make it look like he's being creepy. He's always so awkward around us anyway." Ashley: "I don't know, that seems mean." Brittany: "But it's a prank. It's not real. And honestly, he probably deserves it for always being weird with you." Ashley: "Fine, but we make it obviously a joke, okay? Like, obviously fake." But it wasn't obviously fake. They'd worked hard to make it look real. They'd spent hours in editing, carefully angling shots, manipulating context. This wasn't a spontaneous prank. This was premeditated. Robert also found something else. Ashley had sent a message to her mother 3 days before the party. "Mom, I have an idea for my party entertainment. It's going to be hilarious." Karen had responded with a thumbs up emoji. She'd known something was coming. She just hadn't known what. When I showed Karen the messages, something shifted in her face. She read through them slowly, her jaw tightening with each one. When she got to the part where Brittany said Michael probably deserves it for always being weird with you, Karen made a sound like she'd been physically struck. "She told them you were weird with her," Karen whispered. "She set you up." "I don't think she realized what she was doing," I said, and I meant it. I didn't excuse it, but I could see how a 22-year-old girl, influenced by friends, could think this was funny without understanding the implications. "But your daughter deliberately participated in something designed to humiliate me in front of 30 people. Karen stood up and walked out of the kitchen. I heard her on the phone 20 minutes later, her voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. She was calling Ashley, telling her to come home, telling her they needed to talk. Now. Ashley arrived at the house around 6 in the evening. She looked nervous, the way kids do when they know they're in trouble but haven't yet grasped the scale of it. Karen was sitting at the dining room table with her laptop open, the messages displayed on the screen. "Sit down," Karen said. Ashley sat. "Did you send these messages?" Karen asked, turning the laptop toward her daughter. Ashley's face went pale as she read through the conversation. "Mom, Did you send these messages?" Each word was clipped, precise, deadly. "Yes, but you knew what they were planning. You participated. You discussed making a video designed to make it look like your stepfather was being inappropriate with you. Do you understand what you did? Do you understand that if that video had circulated beyond your friends, If it had gotten to the wrong people, Michael could have been arrested. His career could have been destroyed. His life could have been over. It was a joke, Ashley said, but her voice was small now, uncertain. No, Karen said. A joke is something everyone can laugh at. This is something designed to hurt one person for entertainment. This is cruelty. This is something I raised you better than. I was standing in the doorway, and I watched my stepdaughter's face crumple. Part of me wanted to feel satisfied. Part of me just felt sad. I want you to understand the seriousness of what you did, Karen continued. I've been in contact with a lawyer. Michael has security footage from the backyard. He has those messages. He could press charges for defamation. He could sue you. I'm not saying he will, but he could, and he would be legally justified. Ashley started crying. Mom, please, I didn't mean… You meant something, Karen interrupted. You meant to humiliate him. You meant to make him look bad. Whether you thought about the consequences or not, you meant something, and now you have to live with that. Karen looked at me. Michael, do you want to say anything? I stepped into the room. Ashley wouldn't meet my eyes. I want to know why, I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. I want to know what I did that made you think I deserved this. Because I've tried, Ashley. I know I'm not your biological father. I know there's a limit to what I can be to you, but I've tried, and I don't understand where this came from. Ashley was crying hard now, her whole body shaking. You were always so cold to me, she said through her tears. You act like you don't really want to be around me, like I'm just something you have to tolerate because you're married to my mom. And my friends would say things about how you looked at them, and I wanted you to feel as uncomfortable as you made me feel. I wanted you to know what it's like. The words hit differently than I expected. Not because I thought they were fair, but because I understood, suddenly, that I had failed her in ways I hadn't realized. I've been cold to you, I said slowly, because I was scared, because I didn't want to overstep, because I thought the best thing I could do was stay in my lane and let your mom be your parent. But that distance you felt, that wasn't rejection, Ashley. That was me trying to do the right thing. And I'm sorry it felt like the opposite. Ashley looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time since the party. I'm still angry at you, I continued. What you did was cruel and deliberate. But I understand now that you weren't doing it because I'm a bad person. You were doing it because you were hurt, and you didn't know how to handle that. Karen reached over and squeezed my hand. So here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to write a detailed apology to me. You're going to explain what you did and why, and you're going to acknowledge the harm it could have caused. You're going to send a message to everyone who was at that party, explaining that the video was fake and that you created it as a cruel prank. And you're going to do actual work on understanding why you thought this was acceptable. Ashley nodded, still crying. And then, I said, I'm not going to press charges. I'm not going to sue you. I'm going to let your mother decide what consequences you face, because she's the one who needs to trust you again. But you need to understand that this isn't over. You broke something, and it's going to take a long time to rebuild it. 2 weeks later, I was in the garage organising tools when Karen found me. She was holding a thick envelope. Ashley asked me to give you this, Karen said. She wrote it herself. She asked me not to read it. I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, multiple pages. Ashley's careful script covering the paper. She detailed what happened, step by step. She explained how she'd felt distant from me and how her friends had validated her feelings. She wrote about how scared she'd been when she realized what the video actually looked like, how she'd expected me to explode or leave. She apologized for the humiliation, for the betrayal of my trust, for putting me in a position where I had to consider legal action against a member of my own family. But then, at the end of the letter, she wrote something that made me stop cold. I also wanted to tell you something that I've never told anyone. When I was 17, my friend Melissa's stepfather did something inappropriate to her. He touched her in ways he shouldn't have, and she was too scared to tell her mom for months. When she finally did, her mom didn't believe her at first. That's why I was so angry at you, even though you never did anything wrong. I think part of me wanted to prove that even good stepdads could be bad if you looked at them the right way. I wanted to hurt you the way Melissa's stepdad hurt her, except with words instead of actions. I know that's not fair. I know you didn't do anything. But I needed you to understand what it felt like to be accused of something you didn't do. I needed someone to feel that fear. I read the letter 3 times. Karen found me an hour later, still holding it, my face wet with tears. She wrote about Melissa, I said. Karen nodded. She told me. Ashley saw her friend go through something traumatic, and she didn't process it properly. Instead of getting help, she internalized it and turned it into anger at you. It's not an excuse, but it's a reason. Why didn't she just tell me? I asked. Because she's 22 and scared and doesn't know how to talk to adults about hard things, Karen said. Because she thought hurting you would somehow make sense of what happened to her friend. Because sometimes people do cruel things for reasons that don't make logical sense, but make emotional sense to them. I thought about that for a long time. The week before Ashley's 24th birthday, Karen came to me with an idea. She wanted to give Ashley a gift from both of us, something that would signal a turning point. Not forgiveness exactly, but a willingness to move forward. What kind of gift? I asked. I was thinking about what she's always wanted, Karen said. She's been talking about wanting to volunteer at a crisis center, supporting people who've experienced trauma. She wants to help other people avoid the pain Melissa went through. I understood immediately. This wasn't about buying forgiveness. This was about giving Ashley a path forward, a way to transform her guilt and anger into something meaningful. We found a program through a nonprofit that specialized in training volunteers for a sexual assault crisis hotline. It was a 3-month program, comprehensive and rigorous. The cost was significant, around $4,000, but we covered it together. For her birthday, we didn't get her a card. Instead, we gave her the enrollment paperwork and a letter explaining that we believed in her ability to turn her guilt into growth, and that we wanted to support her in doing something good with the anger she'd carried for so long. I'll never forget the look on her face when she realized what the gift actually was. It wasn't excitement or gratitude exactly. It was something more complicated. It was the recognition that we weren't trying to erase what had happened, but we were offering her a way to mean something in the aftermath. Ashley finished the volunteer training program 6 months ago. She works the hotline 2 nights a week while finishing her degree. She's good at it. Karen says the program coordinator told her Ashley has a particular gift for talking to people who've been through trauma, that she has an empathy that seems almost preternatural. Last month, Ashley called me to ask if I could help her move into a new apartment. I said yes without hesitation. While we were packing boxes, she turned to me and said, "I'm sorry again. I know I've said it a lot, but I needed to say it one more time. I'm sorry for what I did to you." "I know you are," I said. "And I forgave you a while ago. Not because what you did was okay, but because I understand why you did it. And because you did the work to become better." She hugged me then, and I felt something that had been broken between us start to knit back together. The video was never really resolved in the way I expected. The girl who made it, Brittany, never apologized. She moved to California after graduation and apparently doesn't think about it anymore. That stung for a while. But I realized that her lack of accountability wasn't my problem to solve. What mattered was that my family found a way through. Karen and I didn't need that divorce attorney in the end. We did need couples counseling, though, to talk about how to blend a family, how to handle conflict, how to love each other through the hard parts. It helped. Not perfectly, not in some Hollywood way, but genuinely. And me? I learned something that I wish I'd known before. Love isn't always about feeling warm and connected. Sometimes it's about showing up anyway, even when things are broken, even when you don't understand why the people you care about hurt you. Sometimes it's about seeing past the cruelty to the pain underneath it and deciding that the person is worth fighting for anyway. The last time I saw that backyard full of people was at a different party, about a year later. Not Ashley's party this time. It was our neighborhood 4th of July gathering. Ashley came and she helped me set up the decorations. There was no tension, no awkwardness, just a stepfather and stepdaughter working together, the summer sun warm on our backs. When Karen wrapped her arms around both of us and took a photo, I realized that this normal, quiet moment was the real victory. Not justice, not vindication, not even complete forgiveness. Just a family that had been broken and had found a way to be whole again. And that, I learned, is worth more than any humiliation could ever take from you.